Alright, I'm going to make a quick little video about my love-hate relationship with the C4 Corvette. Alright, so I've owned two C4 Corvettes. I had a 1985 Z51 and I had a 1995 with the LT1. So why did I love one and hate the other? Why? I really liked my 85 and I sold it to move on, but after I'd had it all sorted out, the only thing that was left is it needed a paint job, and the cost of a paint job on that car was pretty much the worth of the car. So I moved on and I bought my 1995, which is polo green. I love the color. It had a tan interior. The seats were toast. So, what's so good about the 85? Well, the 85 had the Z51. It was that means it's got a performance axle, and the L98 with the performance axle, oh, here's my neighbor's C4 back there. The 85 with the performance axle is outstanding at launching out of the hole, and you could pull a really good 60-foot time. Now granted, the L98 falls flat on its face somewhere around 4,500 RPM, but it makes a pile of torque. So you gotta use the torque, learn to use the torque. Now, the 95 had the LT1. And although I never had problems, well, I guess I only had that 95 for 6 weeks. When I got the car, it just needed a good cleaning. It needed very little repairs, but it needed seat skins. The seat skins were trashed. So I replaced the seat skins, and I sold the car almost immediately. And the lady come and bought it, and she loved it. I'm sure it was a good car. But there are a few inherent problems with the LT1. I always thought the location of the ABS module was right in front of the engine, which prevents access to the front of the engine. They are notorious for having leaking balancers at the front, and of course the Duraspark ignition, which is mounted down low in the front of the engine. I'm sorry, but that's a mistake. If you're intending on driving this car in the rain, or worse yet, in the snow and the slush, there's no way that distributor is going to survive. But why did I hate the car so much? Well, there's two distinct differences in between the early C4s and the late C4s in the seating arrangement. A lot of people complained about the early C4s that it was too low and too difficult to get in and out of because you had to go over the big fat sill. And there's some truth to that, but if you don't have the upper body strength to pull yourself in and out of a Corvette, then don't buy a Corvette. The next thing is, they move the seat up. So when I sat in my 95, I'm not overly tall, I'm just a hair under 6 foot. My head was just about up against the target top. I like the seating arrangement in the early one much better. They really softened up the suspension, and the handling was affected, of course. But of course, yeah, the Z51, early Z51 Corvettes have a very firm suspension. And the LT1 is a standalone engine. It's not an LS. But it's not an old classic small block. There are very few parts that interchange between the 1990 to 96 LT1 and any previous or post engine. So it stands on its own, and it's disappointing in the sense that I guess I'm attributing the slow car, the slow 95 to the engine, when in fact that particular green car came with the highway gears. It was either a 254 or 278, I'm not sure. So the C4 was available with 4 different gear ratios: 254, 278, a 307, which was called the Performance Axle for an automatic, and then the manual transmission car's got a 345. I remember going to the racetrack, a drag strip, and I saw there was a C4 that appeared to be pretty much stock under the hood, but this guy was banging on 12-second times. He was running low 13s, and I suspect that one of the modifications he had done to the car was install a manual transmission rear end with the 343 gears, and that would certainly knock a good half second off the time, maybe more. At the best of times, a C4 would be expected to run something in the 14s. So, you know, that 95, it was a slug. It was slow getting out of the hole. It had an early version of traction control that would literally shutter down the engine if it sensed any wheel spin. Yeah. And there's no way to turn it off. So, or none that I tried anyways, but there's no button to turn it off. So that's another reason I disliked the car. It was a dark green, a beautiful paint, but it's really tough to keep clean. It might as well be a black car. So yeah, I sold the car immediately, and I don't miss that one. The LT1 was on paper a good idea. The reverse cooling is a good plan. But in reality, sorry about that, the execution was, I swear, that 85 had so much torque down low that it would pull some serious 60-foot times. It would launch out of the hole like nothing else. Probably better than my previous car. And I did have a run-in from my C3 with a C4, and yeah, I got beat out of the hole. I caught up to the guy and passed him pretty hard, but he beat me out of the hole. The first 60 foot was his. So that's probably why I really liked my early C4 and I disliked my late C4. I used to pull a little trick with my 85 that it had just enough power that you could launch it full throttle coming out of a driveway or coming out of a parking lot and turning left or turning right onto a street, that it would send the car sideways and it would straighten itself out. On the other side, the C3, if it got sideways, man, it's a tough one because it's got such a slow steering response. That's a tough one to bring back, and I swear that car almost killed me once. I put it sideways and I barely brought it back. So the C4 was really nice for that, my early C4. The C5 with the C4 19, the second gen, or the later C4, the 95, with its softened suspension, would tend to push if you pushed it hard into a corner. And there's nothing more scary than a car that pushes. I can handle a car that's loose. A car that pushes is when you turn and it just doesn't want to turn, whereas a car that's loose is when the back end comes around. I can catch the loose, but the push, that scares the crap out of me. So, yeah, I got rid of that car fast, and that pretty much sums up my love-hate for the C4 Corvette. All right, man, I got lots more stories coming, so please subscribe and come on back. Thank you all.